Now it's my great pleasure to introduce our commencement speaker. Max Gunzburger is a world-renowned computational mathematician here at Florida State University. He is our Francis Eppes Professor of Scientific Computing and the founding and current chair of the Department of Scientific Computing. As one of the best computational scientists in the world and the acknowledged leader in several areas of inquiry, Max represents the best of academic endeavor at Florida State University. We're extremely proud to call him a scholar of his stature, one of our own. Computational science, which admittedly is a highly technical subject for most people, not me, they're all laughing back here, involves the development of application and algorithms that enable the use of computers to solve a variety of science and engineering problems. Max has developed and analyzed algorithms being used in areas of aerodynamics, superconductivity, climate, and qualification of risk and uncertainty, to name a few. Computational scientists like Max generally contribute their scholarly efforts in two areas. First, they study the physical phenomena that needs to be modeled, such as the transfer of electricity. Second, they develop the computational models. Max has been a leader in tackling both of these challenges. In addition to being a brilliant scientist, he's also a dedicated teacher who cares deeply about his students and keeps their best interests at heart. Max is Florida State University's 2015 and 16 Robert O. Lawton Distinguished Professor. That's the highest honor our faculty gives to one of its own. Among the letters of nomination recommending Max for this honor was one from Clayton Webster, one of his former students, who is now a professor of mathematics at the University of Tennessee and the head of the Department of Computational and Applied Mathematics at the Oak Ridge National Laboratory. He said this about Max: "He's been like a second father to me. He is my most trusted mentor and one of my closest friends. Even though Max is extremely famous as a mathematician, he genuinely cares about his students and considers his responsibility to mentor them well beyond the completion of their studies." Ladies and gentlemen, it's a true honor and a pleasure to introduce a man of great intellect, a man of great virtue, our very own Professor, Max Gunzburger.
Thank you for the very kind introduction, President Thrasher. It's a real huge pleasure for me to congratulate every one of you for being here and for the achievement that represents. I hope you take a lot of pride and pleasure in what you've accomplished, as I'm sure your families and friends do. But I have to tell you how sorry I am that you had the bad luck of having me as your commencement speaker. Most of you know that tomorrow morning's speaker is Gene Deckerhoff. And I sure would have liked to listen to him a lot more than to listen to me. So sorry about that. You all have your own stories of why you came to FSU. Let me tell you mine. For one thing, it's a lot warmer here than any other place I've lived, but there were other reasons. For example, I had a lot of jobs before coming to FSU. I received all my degrees from New York University, and since finishing my PhD until the time I came here, I've had 9 jobs that lasted from 1 to 6 years. No, I didn't get fired from all those places, and I didn't get a raise every time I moved either. 4 of those jobs were at other universities, and together with NYU, none of them had good sports teams. They were either NCAA Division III, which were low down the ladder of athletics, or they were just bad. And there was little hope of any of them winning a championship, and I was pretty bothered by that because I'm a really big sports fan. Now, there were a couple of exceptions. I was at Virginia Tech, and one time they played for a national football championship, and you may recall who beat them. The other exception was the University of Tennessee at Knoxville. Unfortunately, while I was there, their football team had fallen on hard times. So much so that an overeager booster sent a message to the head coach by having a moving truck parked in front of his house. So when the opportunity came to come to FSU, I said, wow, finally, I'll be somewhere where national championships can be won. And sure enough, not only did the football team win a championship, but the women's soccer team did as well. But seriously, why did I come to FSU? Why have I stayed here for close to 13 years where I did not stay anywhere else for even half that long? At the time I came here, FSU had a research unit named the School of Computational Science and Information Technology, CSITE for short, that as President Thatcher pointed out, even in those days focused on the invention and application of ways to solve science and engineering problems using computers instead of using experiments, field observations, or paper and pencil approaches. Now, other universities had units that purported to do the same thing, but what made CSITE unique is that it was truly interdisciplinary. The faculty involved including biologists, physicists, engineers, mathematicians, computer scientists, and more. So joining CSITE was what attracted me to FSU, and the opportunity to be in an environment where I could interact on a daily basis with people from all sorts of walks of life was too good to pass up. CSITE evolved into a teaching unit, started offering graduate degree programs that trained students in how to solve science and engineering problems on computers. A funny thing happened. Actually, the students benefited even more than the faculty from having people around them who worked on very different problems than they did. Then, during the hardest of budgetary times, FSU had the vision to do something really novel and forward-thinking. The final metamorphosis of CSITE was into a separate department, the Department of Scientific Computing, which President Thatcher mentioned. That department was the first such department in the US at a research university. Since then, several other universities had followed suit, but FSU was the first and was the pioneer in this regard. We even established an undergraduate program, and we're the only ones who have an undergraduate program specially aimed at training students in solving science and engineering problems. So again, we're unique, and we're considered a pioneering institution in the training of students in that sense. Now, I want to make a little more sense of why coming to FSU and staying here was an exciting prospect. But first, I have to tell you what I do for a living, and to do that, I have to tell you about why computers are useful. Cars are a good example. It used to take 5 or 6 years between time management in an automobile company decided they needed a new car in their product line, and when that car rolled off the assembly line. Now it often takes half that time or less, because computers have speeded up all aspects of the design and manufacturing process. So not only do these companies save time, but they saved a ton of money. Designing new drugs is another example, and I'm talking about medicinal drugs here, not the other kind. Pharmaceutical companies use computers to examine new molecular combinations and only go to the lab to synthesize and test the most promising ones. Again, uses the time, computers reduce the time it takes to design new drugs and get them approved, and again, saves the companies a lot of money. Or imagine sequencing the genomes of organisms without having a computer handy. We'd still be working on the amoeba. Without computers, there'd be no MRIs, no CAT scans, no paralloscopic surgeries. So examples of these type are ubiquitous and pervasive, arise in literally all walks of life. Imagine life with no ATMs, no cell phones, no social media. In fact, without computers, all of you would still be going outside to play or be playing board games on rainy days instead of being entranced by video games. Okay, maybe that's not the best example of benefits of computers, but computers are dumb. Despite the best efforts of many smart people, computers are still dumb. Yeah, they're great at number crunching, but to do something useful, computers have to be given very explicit and detailed instructions about what they should do. For example, do you really believe a computer could beat the world's chess champion all on its own without some human instructing it about what to do in every situation? This is where units such as the Department of Scientific Computing and students of faculty work there come into the picture. What we do there is to determine those instructions. We call them algorithms, those instructions that a computer is given to do what they want to do. We strive to invent, test, and analyze new algorithms. Now, you all know that hardware becomes by leaps and bounds more powerful every year. The smartphone in your pocket, which I hope is turned off, is hugely more powerful with respect to processing speed and memory capacity compared to what were referred to as supercomputers when I first started doing research many moons ago. And believe me, those computers did not fit in your pocket. In fact, they filled several rooms. What you may not know is that algorithmic advances, those instructions we give to computer, actually has contributed more to the speed up and the effectiveness of computers than hardware. So that's what I do for a living. Now, I'm a mathematician, but my bachelor's degree is in aeronautical engineering, so that I've always enjoyed working with faculty and students in other disciplines. But elsewhere, I had to walk across campus, sometimes trudging through 10 feet of snow to find these folks. Here I have those people right in the building with me, and I only have to walk across the hall to find them and no snow to deal with. So being part of the Department of Scientific Computing, and not only doing interdiversity research, but designing and offering new and more effective ways to train students is why I stayed at FSU for this long. Now that I've told you something on myself, I'm going to change tack. It's usually expected, maybe feared is a better word, that commencement speakers hand out some sage advice to those newly graduated. Here's what Dolly Parton had to say about this. She gave a commencement address at the University of Tennessee in 2009. She said, "Now I usually try not to give advice. Information, yes, advice, no. But what has worked for me may not work for you." She went on to say, "Well, take for instance what has worked for me. Wigs, tight clothes, push-up bras." I should heed her advice, but I can't resist giving you my 2 cents worth. You all are about to be awarded a college degree which comes with a diploma. So just like the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz, you have proof that you're intelligent. But if I was a wizard, I would follow that by giving the Scarecrow the following advice, which I introduce through 3 of my favorite quotes. Gustave Flaubert famously wrote, "To be stupid, selfish, and have good health are 3 requirements for happiness. Though if stupidity is lacking, all is lost." Well, the good health requirement is obvious. Not being selfish, but to in fact do the opposite, is usually the advice given by many, if not most, commencement speakers. And I concur with that, but I'll not talk about that. Flaubert, in my view, was only partially right about stupidity. It is true that unused, unstimulated intelligence leaves one unfulfilled and therefore unhappy. But constantly stimulated and challenging intelligence can greatly contribute towards making an individual happy. So please try to find in your job, or even outside your job, activities that keep your brain busy. The next quote is by John Greenleaf Whittier. "Of all sad words of tongue or pen, the saddest are these, it might have been." The knowledge and skills you've acquired while at FSU, together with your intelligence, give you the potential to do something significant and valuable. It would be sad indeed if somewhere down the line people think of you, or even worse, you think of yourself, that you did not fulfill the potential you had today. Finally, we have a quote from Thomas Gray. "Full many a gem of purest ray serene, the dark and fathomed caves of ocean bare. Full many a flower is born to blush unseen, and waste its sweetness on the desert air." All over the world, there are countless thousands of individuals who, like you, are intelligent, but unlike you, did not have the opportunity that you had to acquire the knowledge and skills needed to make full use of their intelligence. Your college experience made you into a polished gem, whereas they remained unpolished. You owe it to them to do all you are capable of doing to fully take advantage of the opportunity you had, and they did not. So the short version of my long-winded advice to you is, do not become a might-have-been person, but become a look-all-I've-done person. With that, I end once again, congratulate you and wishing you all the best of luck in the future, and go Noles!